In a couple of awards when you're done.
I mean, there's no way I'll take more than
No. I know.
30, 40 minutes
Yes,
at
that's
most, and
that's-
then I'll have
that's
Q&A
fine.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello. Is this on? Everybody can hear me? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started for our luncheon activities. There is dessert in the back. There's more food back there. Please feel free to get up and continue eating if you're still hungry. There's plenty of food and it'll just go to waste. So stock up. Again, for those that haven't been here today, my name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome to Security Matters, Patterns of Distinction Awards Luncheon. This has been a great day, a good crowd here, and it's really been a great day. And to be honest, when we started planning for this in January, we didn't know what today was going to look like. We've had more than 50 or 60 people even streaming at a time watching online today. So when you look around and see the numbers here, it's really even bigger than that. And so it's been a really good group of folks all throughout the day. And thank you all for being here today and being part of it. Thanks to our speakers for taking their time. Most of our speakers aren't from here, or let me rephrase that actually. They're from here, but don't live here. And so, especially for those that had to travel to be here, thank you for that. And Andy, although he does live here, has plenty of other things that he could be doing and maybe should be doing, yet he prepared and came to share his experiences with us. So I'm certainly grateful for those. Before I turn it over to our luncheon speaker, I want to share a few things. And we're actually going to swap the order. For all the awards that we've done so far, we've done them before the speaker, but we're actually going to wait and do these after the speaker because I want to hold that off to the end for reasons you'll understand. But I want to thank a couple of people first, and before we get going. From what we have done at the center for since it started in 1999, it is only made possible because of leadership and support from our administration. And we actually have the director of the School of Engineering, Danny Claiborne, with us, who has been, literally since we started the program. Dean Claire Fuller for the College of the Jesse Jones College of Science, Engineering, and Technology, and our Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Tim Todd, with us today. And all three of them have been very instrumental in our programs for a long time, and we certainly appreciate all that you all do for us. So thank you for that, for your attendance today. We also have a number of our CNM faculty and our cybersecurity faculty in. Will you all stand up? I didn't make the. All right, y'all guys stand up. You're in the back. You too, Dr. Combs, where are you? You guys stand up too. Right. Seems like we're missing one that didn't stand up, but that's okay. But our faculty. Most of our speakers that we have had today, and Wes, who will be our next speaker, are former students, our alumni. And they are unbelievably successful. We're super proud of what they do, but it's our faculty that have helped them become the professionals that they are, and it's our faculty that will help that next crop of professionals become who they are. So thanks to you all. And the last group I want to recognize, part of the guidance that we receive every year comes from our National Advisory Board. Our National Advisory Board meets every year, and actually will meet when this is over. When our lunch is over, we'll start meeting down the hall, and we'll meet for the next day and a half on our program, on our direction. We want to make sure that the content our students learn is relevant to industry. And so we're going to be meeting over the next day to really discuss that and make sure that that's relevant. So there's many of you all here, and I won't go through all your names because I'll miss somebody. But would you all stand up if you're part of our National Advisory Board? I know there's quite a few of you. There's actually a couple more that are even here in the building, but they're actually on a call down the hallway. But thank you all very much for coming in and being part of this. Again, if not for you all, we wouldn't be who we are. And then finally, the last person I'm going to say thank you to, because I'm going to tell on myself, the first Security Matters email that went out, I had a typo in it. And I just hated it. And there were several people that yelled at me about it. But one, because she said, why didn't you send it to me and let me look at it first? I'm like, well, you don't work in the center anymore. And actually, there's two of them. I'm not talking about Dana. Dana thinks I'm talking about her, but but everything that we do, if I design something, if I need a banner, whatever it is, even though she doesn't work in the center anymore, even though she's one of our faculty, that I don't think you stood up as a faculty, I certainly appreciate Annie Dell, and thank you for all your help on getting ready for today and actually taking our students and making them into presentable professionals. I'll say it that way. Thank you very much. And then actually, let me add two other groups that I got to say thanks to. We had a couple of schools that wanted to come today and couldn't because, frankly, they couldn't get bus drivers. There were about 60 students that registered to come today and said, sorry, we can't get bus drivers. I'm like, we'll reimburse you. And it's not a matter of reimbursement. It's a matter of finding bus drivers. But there is one school that's here. Marshall County High School brought a group of students, and apparently they don't like sitting with their teacher. But thank you all. Stand up. Those there from Marshall County, stand up. There were students with him, but they left. And I'll just say that I know that some of these students are coming to Murray State, and Clayton, you picked the right table to sit with. He's one that will ultimately end up at Murray State as well. And then lastly, for however many years that we've been doing Security Matters, we have partnered with CFSB. And if not for CFSB, first of all, we probably wouldn't have started this in the first place, and we certainly would not have kept it going the way that we have. It is your all's partnership. We absolutely value it and appreciate it, and thank you all for not only Andy for sharing today, but for all of you in helping to coordinate and organize this event each year. We really appreciate it, so thank you all. And I guess I should say, and maybe you'll say this when you do drawings at the end, if you haven't noticed out in the parking lot, Dana's car today was kind of big. They have a new, what's the right name for it?
It's the Big Cent.
The Big Cent. Community.
And educational needs truck.
Community and educational needs truck. It is a super awesome truck outside in the parking lot. It's parked along the tennis courts. If you notice it when you leave today, I am certain that you're going to be seeing that vehicle around town. So take a look at it. Can't miss it. It's not small. All right, so now on to our luncheon speaker. Wes Spencer is our luncheon speaker, and I'm going to share a little bit about Wes, but he's going to go into more details in a second. Wes was our John Williams Entrepreneurship Award winner last year. And if you watched our video that streamed online, you learned a little bit about Wes's story. But it was clear that 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it was was not enough for Wes to truly be able to share his story. If you're a high school student or a community college student, you've heard me tell at least my perspective of Wes's story several times because he's a great success. He is. And I'm proud that he's one of our alumni. And I thought it would be a great way for him to come back, share his story as our Nathan Stubblefield Distinguished Lecturer. So that's what our Luncheon Speaker is known as. And for one of our alumni to come back and do that is really neat. But Wes's story is as cool as it comes. And I look forward to hearing. And I will say, if the slides are any indicator, you will be entertained as well. Wes is a great speaker, and Wes, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Dr. Anders, thank you. I appreciate that. It is awesome to be with you guys today. We're going to talk about some fun stuff. I'm actually not going to be super technical with you today, so hopefully you'll appreciate that because we've had some really, really good stuff on the technical side of the house. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my journey, and the real goal is just to encourage you and to challenge you and to get you thinking and to get you maybe outside your box, whatever that box may be. I don't get to define your box. You get to define your box. Your box is made up of your life experiences, who you are, where you want to go, and the adventures that are inside and outside of that box. So I want to talk about that a lot. And I can also say you hear professionals talk all the time about imposter syndrome. If you've never heard that term before, of like, I see these people that are way smarter, way more talented. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. And I struggle with that. And I think anybody that's honest here struggles with that. So just know we're all in that same boat, right? Maybe we've all been gifted in different areas, but we're all in that same boat. So a little bit about me. I live in Tampa now. I love Tampa. I've been there for like 3, getting close to 4 years, and really enjoyed all of that. And I've had a varied background. I won't spend a ton of time on it. Spent some time in banking. I actually spent a lot of time here at Murray State, which is where I cut my teeth. Anyone that I've had the opportunity of teaching in class? Drew? Yeah, there's some hand raises. Yes, I love it. And that's been a privilege. And Lauren, you said earlier that you made a comment about me having an opportunity to impact you in security. Like, that makes my day. So I really appreciate that. It really does. And I've found myself that I am an educator at heart. Like, people ask me like what I do. I think about this all. I'm an educator. It's what I've always done. I just had to learn that I'm not a very good formal educator. Like, I do it in a lot of non-standard ways, as you'll see. But I've found that a way to sort of maximize that gift, and I really, really enjoy all that. So spent some time in banking, really had a lot of opportunities, even as an educator in banking through, in fact, Lauren mentioned the FSISAC, which is a big nonprofit threat sharing group. Was very involved with that and was elected in some leadership roles. And that's really where I started to cut my teeth into pushing myself way out of my comfort zone and doing some things that I've never done before and learning a lot of things that I've never really had the experience of before. And those are great foundations for me where my career has gone and I think is going. So that's sort of a little bit about my background. And I am a part-time YouTuber. I can't not say that because this will come back into the talk today. So, we all say, hey, please like and subscribe. I'm at about 75,000 subs, hoping to should get at 100,000, which means I get one of those Silver Creator Awards, which is like what all the YouTubers like dream of, and I'm not gonna lie, that's a big deal for me. Like, that's actually in my bucket list of like stuff to get. So, and I mostly I really wanted it to be this like Venn diagram of like cybersecurity, crypto, like cryptocurrency stuff, and then just like startup entrepreneurialism. What I learned is that Venn diagram doesn't exist. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So it's really turned very heavily into crypto. And so I've been involved in crypto since, 2012, 2013, because I find it fascinating. I find the idea of what it's doing, and we'll talk about this in a bit, very, very, very innovative. And so we'll talk about some of that as well. And so, my thing is this, is like some people golf, right? That's great, but I YouTube. That's like what I do. So people are like, so what are your hobbies? I'm like, you don't want to ask me that question, because like literally I sit in my studio and I just do YouTube in my free time. So that really it encompasses a lot of it. But I have 4 kids. We play a lot of Minecraft together too. So I'm not gonna lie, like my nerdism is already like at maximum for you, I realize. But I have a server at home. I'm running the Java edition because I'm a real nerd. And we have like all kinds of mods on it, and we have a ton of fun with that kind of stuff. So I'm a huge Minecraft fan too. So any Minecrafters here? Come on. There we go. Yes, most of the kids. I like it. Okay, good. I feel better. So how about a Tolkien quote if we're not already nerdy enough? I love this quote. It simply isn't an adventure worth telling if there aren't any dragons. And this is something I want you to think about. Dragons make stories great because dragons are bigger than us, they're more powerful than us, they're sort of mysterious, and there's just something about ancient lore, for whatever reason, that you just got to go and grab that sword and slay that dragon. It's just part of who we are as human nature. And I think for a lot of us, like, I want you to think about, what are your dragons? Like, what's something that you would love to go and slay? Whether it's something you defeat, something you do that you've never done before, something that you've tackled that's new to you, you'll always be mired in that struggle of imposter syndrome until you learn to go slay a dragon. And the cool thing is, there's no end to them. There's always going to be a bigger dragon down the road for you. And like I said earlier, I don't get to pick what your dragon is. You get to pick that. Your dragon is made up of maybe your background experiences, who and how you grew up, who you know, what you've done in life, where you've been. That's up to you. So I'm going to share with you some of my dragons that I've had opportunities to slay. And hopefully that's an encouragement not to do what I've done, but to find your own dragons. Because that's where the adventure lies. And that's where I think you find a lot of fulfillment in life. So here's something I've learned. We started a company back in 2016 called Perch Security. And I don't have tons of time to go through like the whole background of this story. But one thing I will just say at the beginning of it is this was a company made up of a bunch of nobodies. We had never done something like this before. And if you've ever seen like Shark Tank before, anyone watch Shark Tank? Like, I still watch it. It's like on CNBC now. It used to be cool and on ABC, right? It's surprisingly very accurate, the fundraising, like the motions that go through. Less like 4 people at once. It's usually one-on-one, but it's a lot of failures. And I actually like watching the Shark Tank failures more than the successes. You know, when nobody wants to take, there's no offer on the table. And I'm dissecting it, like why? Why did they fail? Was it a communication problem? Was it a technical problem? Was it a confidence issue? Like, what was the failure that happened in all of that? And I can tell you, we went through failure after failure after failure to get this thing going and off the ground. Like, we had tried this over and over, and the problem that we had was we had no street cred to our name. And to be quite honest, where Perch was when we sold the company was way different than the way we were pitching it at the beginning. Like, we call these pivots in the software industry. You make these big changes to survive. So anyone know the company Slack? Does anybody here know what Slack originally was? Nobody? They were a gaming company. I kid you not. They made a game. Didn't go well. They had this great messaging service that they built in-house. And like, you know what? This thing is kind of awesome. We think there's a play here. They pivoted, and then they sold for, I think it was they IPO'd, for like, I think it was about $6 billion. You talk about a magical genius pivot. Company was failing, total, massive, complete pivot into something totally different. I love their story. I love Slack's story. Such a powerful lesson for us. And the thing that I've learned is through these challenges and through investors laughing at us and saying, you'll never make it, what you're doing is not going to work, there's already better people doing it, which none of those things that I don't think they were wrong on. Like, a lot of it, they were right on all of it. We still sort of got through it. And it wasn't easy to get through it. We took terms that weren't always advantageous. We took some sharky investors that made life and the ability to scale the company very difficult. Things that I hope to never have to go through again. But we made it. And there were some really dark days where, like, I remember talking to Aaron, my co-founder, and thinking, I don't know where the money's going to come from. I remember in the early days of Perch, we had about a month of funding before we were going to shut down and no pipeline that we saw to get us through. You talk about sort of like really scary times. That was a dragon in front of me that I was like, I have no idea how we get through that. None. We're going to slog through it, but I don't know what the end in sight is. So these are things that were really difficult. But what I've learned is now that so fast forward 4.5 years, we sold the company. And we sold it for about $80 million. And you know the thing I've noticed? I don't think this is a bad thing, I've just noticed it. People come up all the time and they're like, wow, that's unbelievable. Good for you. I'm like, yeah. And trust me, the money didn't all go to me. There was a whole bunch of people at our company that all got paid. Every single employee at Perch had equity. They all got checks, which is awesome. And my thinking behind this, the big thing I learned was everyone focuses on the success. Nobody sees the slog to get there. And we're all like that. Like you talk to a professional athlete and you see what they do on TV, on the screen, like, you're just amazing, you're incredible. But to see the work that they put in to get there, that's where the real magic happens. And so it's just something that I've learned is that it's not easy. It's much more like this. The journey of doing something that is way outside your comfort zone and slaying those dragons, whether it's like me and you go do your own thing and start your own company and try to grow it, or it's something totally different for you. I can't choose. It's hard. No one will see the hard work that you go through. They will only see the results. It's just life. No one is going to ever thank you for it. And here's the challenge that I realized at Perch is like we're constantly climbing this mountain like this. Like it was not easy. It was hard until in the flash of an eye it becomes easy. What I mean by that is I remember the day we got our LOI, our letter of intent, from ConnectWise to buy our company. I'll never forget that moment. Like literally the day before, we're slogging. We knew they were interested. We'd had conversations with them, many conversations with them. So I knew there was interest, but then one day the email comes in. Here's our offer. And it's like, finally, all this work has paid off. What we've put effort into finally is here. It was the craziest thing of like, it's like a light switch. There was never this moment of like, oh, it's getting easier, and then, oh, we're downhill. Now it's like cruise control time to an exit. Doesn't happen like that, at least in my experience. And so I think that's part of the journey. I think that's part of the challenge. I think that's part of the reward is you get the unique opportunity to slay a dragon that is not easy. It takes a ton of time to get there, but no one's going to see that effort. So one of the things you have to answer before you can slay that dragon is the why question. So let me go back to the beginning of Perch. I remember telling some friends I was pumped. I was really excited about doing this Perch thing. Like, I loved my job. Nick Johnson's over there, worked with Nick. He will tell you, I liked my job. I loved what I do. I loved the bank. I had a lot of fun doing it. I have great memories there. But this Perch thing was something I had to go and do. And I remember telling one friend, I'm like, hey, so here in about like 6 to 8 months, I'm gonna be moving to Tampa. We're gonna start this company called Perch. Like, we have like $200,000 to get the whole thing going, and that's it. Which, if you know anything about the SaaS, the software as a service industry, that'll get you like a month at the very beginning, maybe 2. And the reaction that I expected was, congratulations, that's awesome. I'm pumped for you. The answer that I got was that. She looked at me and she said, but why? Like, why? She's like, I thought you were happy. I'm like, I am. She's like, I thought you liked your job. I'm like, I do. She's like, I thought you liked Murray. I'm like, I love it. It was nothing about any of those things being negatives. It was that I already had an answer to the but why question. And I will challenge you with this. If you don't have an answer why, you should probably think twice about going to slay whatever that dragon is in your life. What's the why? So I want to leave you with that. It's one of my big takeaways for you today is what's your why before you go and do something. So let me tell you what my why was. Some of you know this about me. Some of you, like Lauren, have even been, were at my house when I was recovering from this. And some of you, like Nick Johnson, took an office chair and rolled it down Baptist Healthcare. Click, 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 and all the nurses are looking like, what is this guy doing rolling an office chair down at a hospital in the ICU wing? And so let me explain what happened. This was a life-changing moment for me and gave me my but why. So I remember one night, I woke up in the middle of the night, my toes were like kind of asleep, and I'm like, oh, must have just slept funny, whatever. Didn't think about it, went right back to sleep. Woke up, my toes are still kind of tingling, but now like this weird tingle was like coming all the way up to my ankles, and I also couldn't feel them. Like I could hit my feet pretty hard, and I couldn't feel anything. I'm like, that's super weird, but me being like a guy, I'm just like, psh, probably no big deal, whatever, like should be fine. I'm sure it'll all heal up. And so throughout the weekend, this is on like a Wednesday night. So through the weekend, it started getting worse and starting to get worse. And I told my small group from my church, I was like, hey, so I can't feel all the way up to my knees. And now my fingertips are like starting to tingle. And they're like, okay, that's a little odd. You should probably get help. I'm like, yeah, maybe I will. My wife is starting to panic a little bit. And then I remember Sunday night, I'm trying to wash my hands in the bathroom, and I'm just looking, I'm like, I can't feel the water on my hands. It's the strangest thing. I put water under my forearms, can't feel my forearms. And I feel okay, but I'm like, this is weird. I've lost all my arms, all my legs. I can still walk and do these things, but like, it's weird. And so at that point, my wife is like, I've had enough of you like ignoring this. So she took matters in, and I don't know if you've ever had like a mama do this. My wife will do this when my kids get hurt. Like she goes into like commander mode, right? Like she takes over the situation, and I love it. She's so good at it. She can just like zoom in and be like, nope, I've got control of this. I'm the boss. Back down. I got this under control. She's just her instinct. She's so good at it. And so she started taking me some doctors. Doctors had no idea what it was. And they finally did what doctors do when they kind of give up and don't know. They just give you steroids. They're like, I'll just give him some steroids. I'm sure it'll be fine. So I take some steroids. And it kind of made me better for 3 or 4 days. Nothing got worse, at least that I thought, but nothing was getting better either. And so through some very, very fortuitous events, I met up with an old friend who's a healthcare practitioner, and I went to see him, and he was like, hey, I'm not practicing today, but I do have a couple of my patients in. Why don't you just come in with them? I'm like, okay, great. So we come in, my wife drives me in, and I'm sitting down, and next to me is one of their patients who is a nurse practitioner. This is just random, or however you want to call it, right? Providence, whatever. So she's next to me. We're both waiting to see my family friend practitioner, and she's asking me all these questions, like, what the heck is going on with you? And her husband is a medical doctor. And so she's like, I'm not okay with this. So she calls up her husband. They get on a speakerphone with me and then going through my symptoms. And then the doctor comes in, and all three of them have this powwow right in front of me talking about all my symptoms. It's very awkward, right? About how weird this is, and none of them have any idea what's going on. And so they're finally like, you need to go to the hospital. Like, this is a serious thing. We don't know what it is, but it's a legit thing. I'm like, fine, whatever, we'll go. So my wife takes me, and one of my family friend doctor was like, I'm going to call you guys every hour until you get there. And sure enough, he did, true to his word. I'll never forget that moment. So I get to the hospital, and this is when it all goes downhill. We're sitting there in the waiting room, and I can breathe. So at this point, they're like kind of triaging me away from stuff. But I start going really downhill, and all of a sudden pain starts coming in. I lose my ability to walk and move. My speech starts to go away. I can't move my mouth. And at this point, they really kind of go into panic mode. And I go through all these battery of tests. They can't figure out what's going on. And long story short, finally I got assigned a hospitalist who assigned to me a neuro who was out of Nashville, but happened to be in Paducah for that week filling in for a different neurologist. I'm just sharing the story so you understand how crazy this is. And this hospitalist and the neurologist figured out what it was. The neuro said, hey, they wouldn't see this very commonly in Paducah, but I'm at a tertiary care clinic in Nashville, so I see this more often. You have something called Guillain-Barré. And this fairly rare neurological disorder, and your immune system is attacking your nervous system. So I could hear him. He's like, I know you can hear me. You just can't respond to me, right? So I'm laying in the hospital bed, extreme pain. And so he's like, we know what to do. We're going to start treatment right away. But he's like, you should be warned. If you don't respond to the treatment quickly, we'll have to intubate you, put you in a coma for at least a couple of months. Because the next thing that shuts down is your respiratory system and you die. So I'm hearing this, but I can't respond to this. And just to like end the story there, I went through months and months, and even ended up being over a year and a half of like full recovery, all the way into like learning to walk again. All the PT stuff that I had to go through, it was pretty miserable. And I had some friends like you, Lauren, that came and saw me at that time. And I'll never forget like that whole time. And I've never been a suicidal person, but there were some dark nights, just to be honest with you, of like this pain wouldn't go away, unassaulting, 10 out of 10, just miserable. So I come out of that, and it just radically shaped how I view risk. Like I'm like, wait, I've always been so afraid of like taking a risk in life because it might fail. And if I fail, I'm gonna have to find a new job. And that's bad. And now I go through this radical life change, And I come out of it, I'm like, what's so bad about these things that I used to think were so bad? It just really changed my view on these things. And so it wasn't as life events would have it, it was less than a year when the perch opportunity to go start this thing came about for my recovery. So you can imagine, had I not gone through that experience, I promise you, I never would have done this perch thing. Never. Never. Guarantee you, never. So that was a huge formative moment for me. And that was a dragon I could never slay had I not gone through some real hardship that was put in front of me. Okay, so, and I love, again, just to prove I'm a nerd, I got 2 Tolkien quotes for you today. How you like that? So I love this one too from Tolkien. The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. This is true. I do believe it is not about the destination. It is about the journey. It is always about the journey. And so I would challenge you and ask you to think about where are you at in your journey today. So often we get caught up in like where we want to be, finishing the bucket list, doing the things, and that's great. You need to have those goals. But if you're overly focused on that, it's going to truly hinder you with where you're at right now. That journey is super important. So I love that quote of where you're going. And for me, I want to talk about 2 things that are like very this is where I've gone in life. So one is cybersecurity. So I grew up in Florida, even though I lived in Kentucky for a long time and back home again in Florida. And in Florida, when you go down these like country roads, and there's like forests everywhere, Florida is really well known for like flash fires. They can happen, they can be very devastating. And so I remember as a kid, we'd drive down these roads and you'd see these watchtowers like this right here. And I remember asking my mom one time, I'm like, so what are those for? And she's like, oh, those are like fire towers that like firefighters come, they climb that tower to look for a fire. It's like, look out people. I'm like, well, that's cool. I was like, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a lookout tower man. She's like, okay, great. I didn't know that like, there's not a person up there 24/7. In my like 3 to 5-year-old brain, every watchtower, there's someone out there, they're looking over, they're watching out, they're looking over for things. And that's who I've always been in my life. And one of the things I love about cybersecurity, going back to the but why, is you have a unique opportunity to make the world around you a better place. Lauren was talking about all these bad guys that go after small, mid-size, and large organizations. And I can tell you in my days at Perch, I worked with many organizations, especially smaller and mid-size, that go through these major ransomware events. I interviewed one of them at a conference in front of like 2,000 people about 8 months ago. His name's Robert Chiafi, and I don't know, I think it's somewhere on ConnectWise's YouTube page. His interview is one of the most moving interviews I've ever had the opportunity to do. So Robert is just your regular, everyday, managed IT provider, and he tells his story of wake up one morning, everything's great, all of a sudden people come rushing into my office, everything's been hit with ransomware out of nowhere. He just talks about, he just broke down in tears. This is a company he built. This is his life. He doesn't have a 401k. His business is his 401k. He has like 15 to 20 employees that rely on him. And when he went through this event, he's like, I just saw everything I worked for just gone in a flash. And I think we lose that empathy sometimes in cybersecurity. Like that's what we have the opportunity to prevent. That's what we have the opportunity to fix and address. And he got through it because he's a fighter. And his story of how he got through it is the most amazing story. And it was not easy for him. But I think over and over and over to have the opportunity in cybersecurity to be that lookout tower man and look out over and see where the threats are and have the opportunity to point out a fire before it gets to be a blaze that you can't get out of is one of the most rewarding things ever, at least for me. So that's another big part of your but why, is why are you doing this? And I want to give you some thoughts on this. So the average cost for small business for ransomware, look at this, is about $180 a record. So I have found myself, I have probably talked about cybersecurity and the need for it, that question that was asked earlier, I've probably talked to more small businesses about this than anyone I know. I've gone all over the country doing this over and over and over. And I think I've got a pretty good feel for this challenge because small business, they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't understand the threat. They're like, I've never been attacked before. Why am I going to get attacked now? Everything I was doing before seemed good. Why do I got to do more things? They think about, and I understand those points of view. makes total sense. So look at this. And so I'll tell them, hey, how many records do you have? In today's day and age, most states define records as not like social securities and credit card numbers. Names, emails, addresses, phone numbers, these are records. Add those up, multiply by 180, there's your damages. Somewhere between, in my experience, it's more about $1 million in damage for small business is what I typically see, but some of the study data shows closer to 3. So that's a good way to sort of line it up. That's exactly what Lauren answered when someone asked that question. Does anyone want to guess? Here's another way to look at it. Does anyone want to guess what the average downtime is from a ransomware attack? I'm talking about a systemic one. Anyone want to give a guess in days? 90? 45? This is what I get for asking security people. Normally I ask non-security people, and they're like, I don't know, a day, like a couple hours, you just got backups, you're fine, right? So the average across the board is 16. I like the security people because they're like, no, it's got to be longer than that because I know how damaging this is, but this is for small business. And I realize you have some, like City of Atlanta, was way longer, way longer. Don't ask anyone who lived in Atlanta at that time. But here's another way to take it. What's your monthly revenue? Slash it in half. That gets a business owner thinking. Now, oh, okay, I didn't realize the damages were this way. So I want to give you some analogies that I love to share because I think sharing cybersecurity through analogies is the most powerful way to communicate that disarms people and that really gets them to understand without you, as you said, Lauren, preaching at people. So let me give you some of my favorite analogies. Does anyone know what this game is right here? Yes, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. One of the top 10 video games of all time. If you don't believe me, fight me. This game is awesome. And see, I grew up in this generation. I was pretty poor growing up, and we had an Atari, but the Nintendo was already out. We couldn't afford it, so I'd go to my friend's house to play all the time. And I loved playing this game. It's hard. When you lost in this game, you lost. You're back at the beginning. It's not like Minecraft. My kids now are like, you respawn and life is good again. I bought one of those retro Nintendos, and we started playing it with the kids, and we died at like the third boxer guy or lost, whatever. And they're like, Dad, what do you mean we got to start over? They're like, what do you mean? Back to they were so angry. They couldn't conceive of this, right? And here's the thing about Iron Mike. I mean, the guy is jacked even today. Have you seen him lately? Like, if I'm in an alley and I need someone to like be with me, I'm calling his name up, right? That guy would not mess with him even today. But in this game, one punch and you're done. That's all it took for this guy. And I remember never, ever, ever, ever being able to beat him in this game, ever. And then, how many of you guys remember Nintendo Power Magazine? See, you high school kids are like, what is all this stuff he's talking about? Yeah, the old people know it, right? So, okay, there we go, some credit. So, back in the day, we didn't have this thing called the internet. So we would go to Walmart and we'd buy a Nintendo Power Magazine and it would tell you like the secrets of the game. And it taught me the secret to beat this guy. And there was but one way to beat him. You had to follow the pattern. And if you followed the pattern every single time, you would always win. That was the only way. It just taught you the secrets of beating Mike. And here's the thing, when you're Mac in the fight, like that's you. Like, look at him. He's undersized. He does not have the punching power or the reach. I mean, the guy's a strong, he's no chance. No chance at all. But if you follow that pattern, you can win. You can beat Mike. And you can beat him every time. What's the analogy here? Cybersecurity is just like this. Sometimes we think it's like witch potion. If I just mash a bunch of stuff together, it'll work. The truth is, that's not the way security works. Security works when we follow a pattern. We follow a framework. So this is why we have these frameworks that are out there, like the Nist cybersecurity framework, the CIS top 20 or top 18 now controls. Many regulatory bodies have their own frameworks that we follow. These are blueprints for good security. And so if you've never heard of these and you're wanting to get into the cybersecurity industry, I highly encourage you to dive into some of these frameworks. I would start with the CIS top 18 controls because they're very, very, very approachable. And if you want a starting point, I do a podcast with the director for the CIS controls. Her name's Phyllis Lee. She is brilliant. It's called thecybercast.com. I think I have a link at the very end. So you can go listen to that. We're up to control 9. So we're walking through all 18. So start there. That's what good security is. That's the pathway. Now, I want you guys to yell out some things. What do you see in this image right here? What is that? Lighthouse? Yeah. What else do you see? What? Waves? Okay. Mist. What? Rock walls. Yep. Okay. Those are good descriptors, right? And I'm like you. That's what I see. Almost kind of a dark, brooding day, maybe. Like if we don't have lighthouses in Tampa, but if we did, like if I had a cup of coffee and I'm watching this from my front porch, good book in hand, wouldn't be so bad. But here's the problem. The problem is you don't have the full image. That changes things a little bit, just a bit, doesn't it? Now, I'm sure this lighthouse has been built to withstand a wave this big. I'm sure of it. But do you notice how the information that you were given affected your ability to rightly interpret the image? Or I could even say the lack thereof with that data. Here's what I've learned in breaches. I remember talking to a company also out of New York. I don't know what the situation is there in New York. But they were in the middle of a breach and they'd called us up, like, can you help us? Well, yeah, we can help you. We'll work through this. And one of the comments they made to me is they said, we had no idea this was about to happen. None whatsoever. Give you another example. I was at a conference in Jacksonville and we brought a client of ours who's an insurance, like not a big, like an insurance agent, just like your local State Farm kind of agent, right? And he told his story of how he went through a ransomware breach, very similar of like, had a great Friday, went home, watched a movie with the kids, did some golf the next day. Sunday night, I'm watching football. I start getting phone calls coming in, and they're like, hey, I can't get to my internet or to my services. I can't log in. Email's not working. And he's like, yeah, that's weird. He tried to VPN in, didn't work. And he's like, I guess I better drive out there tonight just to take care of it. It's got to be an internet problem. So he drives into the office, and there's ransomware everywhere. And he told his whole story of how they recovered. It cost them over $1 million. They did pay the ransom because the bad guys had gotten to the backups and deleted them. And he said, here's the thing that really made it hard to forgive myself. He said, in the forensic aftermath, we learned that the entry point was a phishing email. And that phishing email had occurred 30 days before. He's like, I had 30 days. That bad guy was in my network. And I had no idea. Just like that wave about to hit. No idea. In other words, I had 30 days to do something, but because I couldn't see it coming, there's nothing I could do about it. That hurts. That happens often. And we think we're in these like great neighborhoods when it comes to our cybersecurity posture is what we call it. Like, look at this neighborhood here. Nice, clean neighborhood. I know who I've lived next to for the longest time. I know my neighbors. If something bad were to happen, I'd know about it. Everything's good. This is where I'm at. In the cyber world, we think we're this way. In reality, we're a lot closer to this. And here's the thing about rundown neighborhoods. They don't happen on purpose. Like, nobody's like, let's design a slum. That's a great idea. They happen through neglect, socioeconomic issues. There's a lot of things that cause this to happen, but it's never on purpose. Never. And this is what happens with cybersecurity. We sort of get lax. We're sort of like, well, this has never happened before to us. I think we're okay. And we let that guard down. And this is how usually business owners think of security. Like the guard that somebody told me the other day, he looks like President Biden. I guess I kind of see it, like a younger President Biden, right? Anyway, this whole like, I'm stopping the bad stuff. And that's great. It's good to stop bad stuff until the bad stuff can't be stopped, right? We know this because we watch the news and we see it. Look at this image right here. You see what I see? Take a peek. So I'm happy for the guard gate. It's really good that it's guarding the road, right? But you know who the people are that are probably driving by this? Your own employees that are just trying to get work done. I know we talk about like insider threat all the time, and that's a real thing, but oftentimes the source of insider threat is not malice, it's ignorance. It's usually employees. I didn't mean to click on that. I didn't know it was bad. I thought it was okay. We're in 2022, and phishing is still the number1 entry point. Isn't that shocking? Because of the human element of weakness in all of this. So that's usually where the problems are with this. And I don't know if you guys like 90s thriller movies. Again, I'm showing my age, but I also have to prove my nerd street cred to you guys. This is when a stranger calls. You remember this point in the movie when like she calls and she's in a panic? And it's coming from inside the house. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Back before that, like movies like that were made, This is how it is. It's always the threat. Sometimes it's from outside the house. Well, Lauren had like the Kaseya solar winds attacks, Colonial Pipeline. Sometimes they're from outside the house, but oftentimes it's the run-of-the-mill stuff. What we click on, what we visit, what we do. We just had no idea. It's not like the games. It's not like the war games. You guys remember this movie? Well, Mr. Broderick there in his younger days. I remember these days as a kid. And many of you that are my age remember this of like, everything was open, so you could like break into anything that you wanted. There's nothing to stop you from these things, right? Like I remember like Sub7, NetBus, like these hacker tools that were like just script kiddie tools. And I thought I was so elite because I was like opening and closing people's CD-ROM trays that are out in like Seattle. And I'm like, yeah, look at me, I'm like elite, you know? And you could see their chat and like, someone's hacking me, and I could actually type back into their stream on ICQ and be like, yeah, it's me, best respect. Like I thought it was so cool. And I remember this movie came out, I'm like, that's me, right? Except this kid was way smarter than me. But here are two reasons we know that this is movie fiction and not real life. First reason is these days have passed us by. It is not a kid sitting around, usually, hacking away doing the bad stuff. It's organized criminal elements and it's nation states. They're either after your money or they're after your information. Those are their motives. That's reason number one. Reason number two is a little less insidious. You see the girl in there? Trust me when I tell you, there has never been a day, nor will there ever be a day, that a girl is going to come into a bedroom and watch a boy hack. That does not happen. So this is how we know this is all movie fiction. These days are gone, right? So we talked about phishing. We know that's a huge threat. And I want to talk about Florida Man for a minute. Anyone know about Florida Man? Okay, if you don't know Florida Man, I'm going to do you a solid. Just Google it. It's one of the greatest things ever. So something about moving to Florida turns you into Florida Man. And I know this now that I live in Florida. I see this all the time. I saw a guy get arrested for practicing roundhouse kicks on swans at the lake. He must have been having a great time. It's a true story. It's Florida Man. So this is Tom Brady. He happened to win a Super Bowl in Tampa. But look at young Tom Brady, back in the days in which he was a Patriots. These are images from his very first Super Bowl. Now, I don't know about you, but I see elation. He's now an elite group of people that, like, very few people are Super Bowl champions, let alone the starting quarterback. Very few. This is elite. Look how happy he is. His life has changed. But once you've won 1, 2, 3, it's all sports ball to me. So how many has he won? I think it's like 7 or 8. It doesn't matter. It's sports ball. Once he got to Tampa, things changed a little bit. This actually happened. And I don't know if you guys ever saw this on the news, but this is the kind of image that gets, or GIF that gets better every time you watch it. So we do parades on the river. We don't really do them that goes out in the day. We don't do like road parades in Tampa. So it's boat parades the way we do this, right? And so this is the boat parade for the Bucks. Tom had had a little too much to drink, and by a little I mean he could barely stand up. And he takes the Lombardi trophy and chucks it from his boat onto the next boat. Now, granted, if you're going to throw the Lombardi trophy, at least throw it to Gronk. He's the one sitting there in the red shirt down there that caught it. I mean, granted, he had that going for him, but watch Tom's daughter. Watch her, right here, watch her. You see that? She's like, no, Dad, don't throw the trophy, right? Don't do it. I just love this image. This was like all the rage in Tampa. Here's why I think this is important. We are the same way in cybersecurity. We used to care. Then we sort of let the guard down. We've made it through 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and we chucked that little trophy across the way, not thinking about the implications of it. We let our guard down, and that's a problem that we have across the way. So I'm almost done with analogies, but you see what I'm doing? I'm just trying to give you very simple, non-technical reasons of why cybersecurity is both important and why we haven't kept up. These are things that board members understand. These are things that technical or even non-technical decision makers are kind of like, yeah, I can buy that. Okay, I'm now open to what we should do about it. I'm just giving you some of my favorite analogies. So this is one of my most favorites, and I just kind of wrote this one recently. So you guys have coyotes around here. No big deal, right? You probably go out at night and you hear them howling. Right, Cheyenne? It's a pretty normal thing. I remember that too when I used to live out in Kirksey. And no big deal, right? Well, this really happened in Florida. It happened in my neighborhood. True story. So apparently there was a coyote in my neighborhood. And my neighbor came over. He's older, nicest guy on earth. He's like, his name's Eddie. He's like, Wes. He's like, are your kids okay? I'm like, yeah, they're okay. Why? Everything okay? Your dog? I haven't seen your dog in a while. Is your dog? Yeah, she's in the house. He's like, okay. He's like, last night, not me, but your neighbor over there, Fred, he saw a coyote last night. And he's like, You just need to know. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, thanks for telling me. Like, what, like a lot of them? He's like, no, we saw one. We saw a coyote. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So like, I kid you not, that very week he starts putting up video cameras all around his house. He puts signs up all around. It's not just him. All my other subdivisions on my road are putting up these like, we saw a coyote. And all hell is about to break loose. And I'm like, wow, a coyote. And I'm like, you guys have these. This is in Lakeland, the next town over. This is not photoshopped. I mean, yes, the gator is closer, but these eat people. I mean, they show up in your pool at night. This is why nobody in Florida swims at night, whether it's in a pond or their own pool, unless you have one of those big screen enclosures, because you're like, here I am, having a great swim, and up comes a gator. It's legit true. My wife almost ran a gator over the other day. Like, you guys almost run over raccoons and possums and stuff. For us, it's gators. I'm telling you, they're everywhere. When I say, like, I see a gator almost every day, I'm not kidding you. They're everywhere. You just live with them in Tampa. You're just used to them. It's like this thing. You're just so used to them, it's almost like this. Like, I guess the cop tased the gator, and now he's cuffing him. That's a real cop. That's not like a pet control guy. This is real stuff. This happened. I'm not joking. And then I don't know what his mouth thing is that he's pushing him back into the pond like it's all going to be fine again, but this is Tampa. This is Florida. Here's my point. I think we're the same way. Sometimes we over-worry about the coyote, who's not really a big threat to us, and completely ignore the massive gator in the room. We struggle with this in cybersecurity. We sometimes look at things not the way we should be looking at them. So let's quickly talk about the other big sphere I have, which is crypto. And I'm going to go through this super quick because I'm out of time. I have been so enamored with crypto for almost a decade now because it's the coolest stuff. It's not about, you know, having the moon Lambos and getting to Mars and all the Elon stuff, even though that's fun. It's about the technology that drives it. And I want you to know how dumb I am. So I bought a Bitcoin miner way back in 2012, 2013, somewhere around that era, and I actually found the receipt in my Gmail because I don't delete stuff because I'm an email hoarder. And this is the miner that I bought. It's like $800, something like that. I think I got like 2 Bitcoin out of it. And you're like, dude, Wes, you're so smart. You got 2 Bitcoin, you mined out of it. I'm like, yeah. You know what I should have done? I should have taken that $800 and just bought Bitcoin with it instead, because that's what it's actually worth today. So I'm not a smart person, is what I'm trying to get at. Don't think of me as like super crypto smart. So you bankers in the room will understand what crypto is trying to do. In the old days in banks, you had, before the days of computers, you had these big ledgers. Like literally these big tombs that you would like open up, and you'd be like, okay, so you're adding this much, or you're withdrawing this much. We just add it to the end of the ledger. We do the math, we're good. And I don't have to go back to the beginning of this massive ledger because I'm keeping it up to date. But I could if I had to. Like if I get into a lawsuit, I could forensically go back through that big old book and prove it's right. That's the cool thing about ledgers. That's exactly what blockchain is doing. It's a digital ledger. And when people understand that, they're like, oh, why did no one ever tell me that? That makes so much more sense. That's the idea of what blockchain is trying to do, is write to a ledger that anybody can see, that anybody has access to, that anybody can confirm, that anybody can run. It's completely open and distributed. That's what blockchain is in its essence. And there's a lot of ways of doing this. Another way of doing this is, instead of like writing stuff to a ledger and having everyone trying to rush and solve the answer, there's this other way called proof of stake that's out there. This is another kind. Ethereum, if you ever heard of Ethereum, is moving to this. And a lot of the new cryptos that are out there, like Solana, are already this way. Cosmos is this way. A bunch of really cool cryptos that are out there of like, we put skin in the game. And so I follow the rules, because if I break the rules, I'm going to lose my stake that I put into it. So I might put $1,000 in or $1 million in, and I stake it, and I make rewards on that, but I'm going to follow the rules because I don't want to lose my stake. That's sort of the idea of like proof of stake cryptos. They're very fascinating. And then one of the newer ones that's coming out, Stellar is an example of this that Facebook for a while was very heavily involved in. It's called Consensus. And Consensus is a really cool technology adaptation that follows what's called the Byzantine generals problem. This goes way back to the days of just a military sort of conundrum of, if I'm the Byzantine general and I'm ready to attack this town, and I tell all my generals, we're going to go attack this town tonight at midnight, what if some of the generals are actually on the other team? that could be really bad for me, right? Because now they're going to let everyone know, and now the attack's not going to go so well. And so the idea of the Byzantine generals problem is this idea of, well, I'm just going to tell everybody one-on-one, this is what we're going to do. We're going to attack at midnight tonight. Go to the next general. We're going to go midnight tonight. And then what I do is I have them all get together and say, hey, what are we planning on doing? And they all talk. And because they all talk, through consensus, they can figure out that's all correct. And if one person's like, wait, no, I heard that it was 10 a.m. that we're going to do it. And someone else is like, yeah, I heard that too. Who'd you hear that from? Oh, I heard it from Drew over there. I heard it from Drew. It's a way we can sort of figure out who the imposter is. And there are some cryptos that are using that mechanism of like lots and lots of talking to find out if there's a bad guy that's been introduced into the system. Pretty cool stuff, right? So I find this world really, really interesting and fun and cool. And so many people focus less on the technology, much more on like the cool stuff that's out there, like NFTs. Like you guys remember NFTs? You probably do. The image on the left was created by Beeple, sold for $4 million. No, $6 million, sorry. That sold for $6 million. $6 million. Isn't that crazy? CryptoPunks, that's an NFT on the right, sold for $4 million just recently. These things are elite because they are, right? But don't get mad at me for this because we're the same way with physical goods. That shoe on the left is $500. That Hank Aaron 1954 Topps card is about $20,000. What's the difference between the images and that right there? Just one thing, tangibility. That's the only difference. I can actually put that shoe on or hold that card and show it to you. We struggle with NFTs because we don't understand it's in the eye of the beholder of what they think it's worth. And I don't have the right to say, if you spent $6 million, I think you're stupid, but that's your choice, right? Like that's the market. It is what it is. And we see this all the time. Look at this piece of artwork. This is Untitled by Matthew Rothkos. It was created in like I think the 50s, something like that, and just recently sold for $46 million, and it's 2 colors. I'm not an art guy, I'm sorry. But if you think it's worth $46 million, power to you. I can't stop you, right? And don't tell me that we don't think this stuff is coming like crazy. There was a day when we thought nobody would pay for digital goods that add nothing to your day. Is anyone in here, I'm looking at you kids, bought something from Fortnite? There we go. And Drew as well, right? These right here, these emotes have generated millions of dollars that add nothing to the game. It doesn't make you better, doesn't make you faster, doesn't give you a better weapon. It just is an emote that you buy. And yet they've generated billions of dollars off all of this. This is the age, let alone metaverse, which we don't have time to talk about today. But metaverse is super cool stuff. Am I in it? No. Am I interested in it? I'm super interested because of the features. You haven't seen Ready Player One? Those days are coming. Facebook is going as fast as possible towards that future. So get used to it. Like this is the world we're getting at. And these days are gone of the old school systems. I love this image of a bank. Look at that. You see these people used to stand on those floors in front of the teller machines for so long. And for so many years, they indented the marble floor. Isn't that incredible? No one goes, and our CFSB folks will tell you today, it's all online. Yeah, you have tellers, but it's all online. That's why Andy's job is so important, right? These days are gone. And that's what crypto is doing. All of this stuff that you see right here, this is what it's innovating on. Now, will it be successful or not? I don't care. I'm in this for the journey. I'm in this because of the fun of where it's going and what it's doing and what it's disrupting. I think it's the coolest stuff ever. I don't care if it succeeds or fails. I have no skin in that game. It's fine if it fails. We're going to learn something along the way. But I think it's really awesome stuff. And I do think it's innovative in incredible ways that I don't have time to talk about. So I'll leave you with this. Every journey that you have starts with being in the wilderness. So if you feel like, I don't know what's next, I don't know what I should do, I don't know what that dragon is, just know you got to get in the wilderness, pull out the machete, and carve that path. Like that's what it's all about. And that's such a huge piece. So I'm going to skip all this because I don't have time for it. I knew I wouldn't. And I am going to even skip the lessons learned because we're just out of time here. Maybe you have me back some other time. But here's some info on me if you want to follow me. Here's my Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And then below is a QR code that has like a bunch of links to like the stuff I mentioned before, like the podcast and some other things that I do fairly regularly. So I really appreciate you guys letting me talk to you today. And hopefully I encouraged you or challenged you or gave you something to think about. And if I've not met you, I would love to. I'll be here all the rest of today. So I'd love to meet you if I haven't already. So thank you guys so very much.
as I mentioned, don't sit down yet. As I mentioned, Ethan, I'll let you come up here too. The speaker at our lunch at our conference, our Patterns of Distinction luncheon every year, is our Nathan Stubblefield speaker. And I want to present you with this for that. Let me put the microphone down.
Thanks so much.
And before we leave, we have two pieces of business. I want to recognize one other person, and then we want to do a few giveaways. So you'll want to stick around for both of those. There's one award that we have not given out, and it is the Dr. Gene Wells Ray Lifetime Achievement Award. And this award is given out each year to an individual that has exhibited significant sustained contribution to to TSM over a career. This individual should have an extended period of contribution in academic or government post. For those that don't know, our recipient this year is retiring. This is his last Security Matters conference. Actually, he already said he was going to come back next year, so I'm holding him to it. But in all seriousness, Dr. Danny Claiborne has been the chair and now director of the School of Engineering. If you ask who was around when TSM started, the answer is him. He helped write the program, the proposal for the program. When we created TSM, and I say we, I was a student and I tried to get into it, and they said, no, you'll take too long to graduate. My minor was in electrical engineering technology, which Dr. Claiborne had the foresight to see that let's modify that and adapt it to become what is now TSM and CNM. He has been here for several years. Could have retired well before now, but his love for this place and his love for the students kept him here longer than maybe than I would have been here. Let me just say it like that. The one thing, while he's a department chair, now director of a school, the one thing that I know without a doubt is that he cares about the students maybe more than any other department chair on our campus. And I think it's fantastic how much he cares about our success. And I say ours because he was chair when I was a student. And the success of those that come through Murray State. We would not be what we are today without Dr. Claiborne. And I say that from a program standpoint, and honestly, I will say that from a personal standpoint. There was a time I left Murray State, and it was with consultation with him on whether or not I should stay, I should leave, what I should do. And not only does he have Murray State's interest at heart, but he has always had those students' best interests at heart. And so it is, it gives me a lot of honor and a great pleasure to recognize Dr. Claiborne this year. And I will say that he doesn't want a lot of fanfare for his retirement. He specifically asked for not a lot of fanfare for his retirement. But the truth is that there is, he is one of those people that has done so much for our region. And I'm speaking on a TSM cybersecurity standpoint, but the same thing could be said of our electrical engineering technology program. Same thing could be said of our physics and engineering program. The School of Engineering is not what it is today without Dr. Claiborne, and thank you so much for all that you've done over your career, and now you have to come up here and be recognized. Congratulations. All right, last but not least, wrong microphone. Last but not least, a couple of giveaways. Some wireless earbuds that are JBL, ticket number 142. 142. Somebody probably has it, because most everybody's here. All right.
Who's closest to 142?
It would have to be without going over. All right, let me try again. How about 149? All right. Drew, did you put your name in the CFSP pot? All right. Last but not least, our pair of Apple earbuds.
Sure. Wait a minute, I have to say something. I have to add that Mr. Danny Claiborne was also the first person who ever believed in me as well when I was a student, who was the one who said, "We need you," in TSM, and gave me my first job with Dr. Gann. So I just had to add that because that's a very special memory for me. So congratulations and thank you. What'd you say?
I get this wrong?
Yeah, do it.
Ralph Emerson.
Ralph Emerson?
That's me. I'll take it.
Available? All right. On to the next. No Ralph.
I think that's the rule. Barry Phelps.
Barry Phelps. Ah.
Barry is one of a handful of people that have actually driven a couple hours to get here today. So he's from Henderson. Congratulations. Let me say one last thing. Thank you all very much for being here today. It is always a great day to visit with folks, to see folks that unfortunately we don't get to see enough, but we see you at Security Matters. It's fantastic to see you. I think we've had another great event. Stick around and network if you want to. For the National Advisory Board members, we're going to be meeting a couple doors down. Safe travels home. We already know next year that we are going to be back here on April 20th. It's already reserved. Book it. We'll be back here in, well, a year minus a day, and hope to see you here. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.